Welcome to Middle Ground, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. I'm Bryn Erickson, life coach, mom, Latter-day Saint, and just a fellow work in progress. Consider this your space for all of it, the real conversations about faith, relationships, health, finances, identity, sexuality, and every beautiful, messy piece of being human. Because I believe the more honestly we see each other, the better we love ourselves and the people around us. If you felt that, you're in the right place. Let's get to it. Hey there. As you are listening to this podcast, if someone comes to mind that you wouldn't mind sharing with, that would be amazing. The algorithm is a real thing, and I would love for as many people that this podcast can serve to find it. If you feel like following or leaving a comment, all of that will help people find the Middle Ground podcast, and I would appreciate it so much. Now, enjoy this episode. Jackie and Jeff, my new friends, how are you guys?
Doing wonderful.
Doing good today.
Awesome. So Jackie and Jeff are associated with the Other Side Academy and Village. And I learned about this foundation through the Faith Matters Foundation when someone from there was interviewed, and it just blew my mind at how you help people and change lives. And it has become integral in my life in making donations. My family loves to contribute in our own little way to the foundation because I just love what you guys do. And I'm excited to let everyone know what the foundation does for our fellow brothers and sisters. So you ready to dive into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So what exactly is the Other Side Academy and Village?
Okay, so the Other Side Academy is a 2.5-year program for men and women coming out of incarceration, homelessness, or addiction. And it focuses on whole person change and behavioral change. And the whole goal is for people to go into the academy and work on some core behaviors that might have led them into a criminal lifestyle or into addiction. And we focus on those core behaviors there. And the goal is to help them transition back out into the community after their 2.5-year stay. So that way they can become productive members of society. And some people choose to stay longer once they get to that point where they're ready to graduate. And that's what I myself did, and that's what led me to work for the Village.
Yeah, and the big difference between the Other Side Village and the Other Side Academy is the Other Side Academy is not equipped to take people with dual diagnosis or mental health issues. That's why we were really lucky to start the Other Side Village, so that way we can help that portion of people, and because there's a lot of them out there, and it's pretty much the same as far as learning accountability, integrity, honesty, and how to live in a community. The only difference is after the Other Side of Village, once you complete the Other Side Prep School, which is 9 to 18 months, you will essentially move into your own small cottage home for
it can be the rest of your life if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So you don't have to move into the Village unless you want to.
Well, that's the end goal. Yeah. You don't have to stay at the Village for the rest of your life if you don't want to, but you can.
That's pretty cool. Does anyone ever not want to stay at the Village, or do they typically that's what they're shooting for?
Well, when people come in, I think once they get a sense of what real community looks like, oftentimes people choose to stay. We're still in the beginning phases, so we have a lot of success right now. And, we have a couple of people that have decided to move on to other things, and that's fine. We're fully supportive of that as well. But for the most part, the people that have come through and completely and successfully changed some behaviors in the prep school, they've moved over into the Village, and they're here living full, happy lives right now as we speak.
Jackie, you just said something really important that I want to dive into. You said once we learn what real community is like, what is real community?
Real community is having people that are going to hold you up and support you, but also not let you fall short and
Mm,
have expectations of you to live your best life and be the best person that you can be. And sometimes that looks like hard conversations and facing things about ourselves that we typically would either want to run from or hide from or use substances to mask. But having people that expect something out of us instead of just accepting us
mhm.
as being lesser than, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think a big, well, this is, I guess, an assumption on my part, but is a big part of it how you view yourself first? Like, is that the inner work that has to be done first?
I would say absolutely. I know that when I got to the academy, I was completely broken and my self-esteem was just really low. I didn't like the person that I had become or the compromises I had made in my life to just stay in that lifestyle. So I really had to learn how to love myself and accept myself, flaws and all.
Uh-huh.
And I learned to do that by seeing myself in other people and really just viewing it through a lens of, okay, if I make a mistake, I'm really hard on myself, but this person in my community, this peer that I have, if they make this same mistake, I would treat them with compassion and kindness.
Mm,
I would
yeah,
expect them to learn from it, but I wouldn't be as hard on them as I am on myself. So really just learning to kind of hold myself to the same regard. It took a lot of practice and I still work on it to this day.
I love that. That's so beautiful. So, how does someone find the academy or get in or get accepted? What does that process kind of look like and entail?
So the way you get into the academy, like I did,
Okay.
you can write a letter, and if you're in jail, you can write a letter to them, and they will reach out to you. They'll come do an interview where you're at,
Hmm.
um, and what you get, you'll do it. You'll come to the academy and do another interview process, and that's to see what you're really about. See if you're an honest person. Um, yeah. So the difference between the academy and the village of how you get accepted is the academy, you write a letter. The
Okay.
village, we do a lot of outreaches, and we'll go to different places like homeless encampments
Mm,
and other programs or homeless shelters, and we'll
hmm.
reach out to see if we can find anybody. Mo, he's our director of recruitment.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then we have a two-part process to that, two-part interview process. The first interview is kind of just to see if you have what it takes and see if you're about it, and then we'll have you go to what's called Village Connect once every couple weeks to stay connected with us. If
Okay.
we don't like to call it a waiting list, but essentially that's what it is.
Yeah.
And after the first interview process, we'll do a second interview where two coaches that have not had any interaction with you will go out, meet you where you're at,
Cool.
and we will do a more extensive interview to get to know your background, like your drug history, your mental health history, what your struggles have been in life, and what essentially got you to that point.
Hmm.
And then we will bring you in to the community, and you can see what it's all about and see if you like it. And yeah.
How do you know if someone's a good fit?
Mm. Okay, I would say just the willingness to change. I think it's easy to tell the people that are just looking for a housing model.
Okay.
And, we do provide housing. We are residential, but we're about whole person change. It's a holistic approach. So, sometimes when you're interviewing a person and you tell them, you're going to be expected to keep your room clean, you're going to be expected to practice accountability, you're going to be expected to participate in our community. Um, some people right out the gate they say, "Okay, I don't think this is something I'm interested in." You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
so it's it's pretty easy to tell who's into it and who's not into it, who's willing to do what it takes and who isn't. But then sometimes we do accept people and it gets hard for them really quick because they've never had anybody in their lives expect anything, of
Hmm.
them. And, being out there, being homeless, being on the street for a long time, I know that I had lost my work ethic. I had developed what I call a hustle, but as far as taking pride in a job and having a good attitude and showing up on time, I had to relearn all of those basic things. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so sometimes people come in
Hmm.
and they're just like, this sounds great, this is fantastic, I want to do this. And if they have some struggles along the way, we're there to support them and just really help them understand that we get it because we have lived experience. We've been homeless, we've been addicted, we've been through the ringer, but if I
Yeah.
can do it, then you can definitely do it. So I think that's an important piece of kind of sensing somebody's seriousness when we do the interview process.
Very cool. Are there multiple locations? Like, where exactly physically is the other side?
Okay, so the Other Side Academy started in Salt Lake City, and I believe it was back in 2015.
Okay.
And then we have another location in Denver, and that's the location that I graduated from. And then the Other Side Village, we only have one location. It's in Salt Lake City, but it is divided into two locations. There's the prep school, which is the first phase. Somebody has to go through the prep school and graduate and move into the
Okay.
village.
And that's actually right across the street from the academy.
Oh,
We
cool.
have we have a brand new apartment building. We should be moving in within a week or two.
Yeah, so
That's exciting.
yeah, we're able to help more people because it's a bigger location, and I just have to say it is phenomenal. We took everybody to go visit it yesterday, and yeah, it blew my
Yeah,
mind.
we're going to be going from right now. We have about 20 to 24 people at the prep school, and that's going to triple within the next year or so.
That's amazing. I love that so much. That just makes my heart so happy. Because my mom works with a foundation that helps people experiencing homelessness.
Mhm.
And it is so hard to get yourself out of it because you're just struggling to meet your basic needs all the time and you can never get ahead. Does that resonate with you guys at all?
Oh yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I have about 25 years of homelessness on and off the streets,
Wow.
and I always wanted to do something different with my life.
Okay.
I just didn't know how, and I think I was stuck in that survival mode, and then it became easy, and then
Mhm.
it became, that's just what life was.
Yeah.
So when I finally hit rock bottom, that's when I was lucky enough to find the Other Side Academy. Even though I was in jail, I was still happy because I'm sure a lot of homeless people can relate. When you get arrested and you go to jail, at least you got a bed to sleep in and 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my story is kind of similar as far as the relief in getting incarcerated because I knew,
Wow.
once I was booked in, I didn't have to worry about where am I going to sleep, where I'm not going to be harassed or somebody's not going to rob me or steal from me. Am I going to be safe in that location? I knew I wouldn't be vulnerable as a woman out there on the street because I'd be in jail. Um, and, I would have food to eat and it gave me time to stabilize. But I always had this fear of release. Once I get released, I know I'm going to go right back to the same old thing because
Yeah.
it just became normal. And that's what I accepted my life to be. But, when I found out about the academy, I knew it was probably gonna be the most challenging thing I ever committed to, and it was, but it's also the most rewarding. My life, I can't believe my life is the way that it is today. I'm able to deal with hard situations instead of running from them. I'm able to show up for other people. I'm challenged every day, and, I grow in some way or another every day, you know, but yeah, it's so hard to get out of homelessness, especially when you're just given a resource packet. And you're like, okay, well, here's this resource packet, but in order to get a birth certificate or an ID, you need to have a social security card. In order to get a social security card, you need an ID. And it's just, then you need a mailing address to send it to. And if you want to get a job, you need to have a place to shower and sleep,
Right.
clean clothes to put on, all of these things. And there's this stigma that people in homelessness, they don't want to change. And that's not true. I think a lot of times when we're in that lifestyle, it's like Jeff said, we don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
So having that olive branch extended through the academy, it was just like, this place is free of charge. I don't have to worry about insurance. I don't have to worry about having a family member that can pay for me. I don't have to worry about getting kicked out when my time is up and not being ready. It was just come as you are. And if you're willing to do the work to change your life, we're here to hold you up until you can hold yourself up.
Yeah, I think one big thing that sets us apart from other places is that once we do our outreaches, once we are in contact with people, they stay connected through Village Connect. And also, right now, we're going through a thing where we can't do any interviews or bring anybody in because we're in the transition to go to new prep school. But we do have people that are reaching out to us every week. Our phones are on 24/7 if they keep us up to date of what they're doing. So we don't just give them a resource packet or say, hey, we'll call you in a month or so when we have a bed available. We stay in contact, and that's a big difference to what we do.
Like the accountability piece that follows you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you guys then. So how did you become, I know, Jeff, you kind of said that you reached out while you were in jail or prison.
Yep. So I moved to Salt Lake City about 10 years or so ago. I used to travel with the carnival, and long story short, I met a woman at the carnival. I got her pregnant. I'm originally from Minnesota, so we left the carnival, went to Minnesota, and then had the baby there. She's from Salt Lake City, so we moved here. Everything was fine for about a month or so. We started using again together. And I ended up just going back and being homeless. And then I lived up in the canyons up by the Capitol for about 6 years. I ended up getting stabbed and ended up in the hospital. And then about a year after that, my mom had passed away, and that's when I just really hit rock bottom. And I actually ended up calling the cops on myself.
Really?
To go to jail. And I said, you guys got to take me to jail for a warrant. One, because of the paranoia of being stabbed and being on the streets and everything. I was also in psychosis from, I'd call it meth-induced psychosis, just from being on drugs for a long time. And yeah, I went to jail for the last time and seen a pamphlet for the Other Side Academy, and I wrote him a letter. I also wrote, Red Barn was around at the same time. But I chose to go to the Other Side Academy just because when they came and did their interview, it was a lot more in your face. Chris, he was the one who did my interview. He told me about myself and what I needed to change. And that just resonated with me. And so, yeah, and here I am.
Okay, Jackie, what about you?
All right, I'll try to keep it short and sweet and not get into deep about it. So I was introduced to drugs at a really young age, and I struggled with addiction and just trying to fit in pretty much my whole life. It was really a lack of love for myself, and the only way I was okay with who I was as a person, whether that was like my physical appearance or feeling accepted by people, or really just being able to accept things that had happened to me when I was a kid, I would use drugs because that was the only time I didn't think about those things, and I felt comfortable in my own skin, if that makes sense. So I had a daughter when I was 19 years old, and I told myself, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to get clean. I'm going to get sober. And that lasted for a little while until she had to have some extensive surgery. And I didn't really know how to deal with that as a young mom. And here I am. She's having this life-altering surgery on her spine, and I'm in the city, right where I used to get drugs, and I made that choice to go back to it. And from that point forward, my life just was a downward spiral. And I tried to keep up the appearances of, I'm a mom, I have a job, I take care of my daughter, and I have a vehicle. I'm okay because I'm
Uh-huh.
still afloat. So I would always justify what I was doing because I did it behind closed doors,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
that only lasted so long. And, I wound up losing my job as a preschool teacher, in and out of just like little menial jobs like being a dishwasher or babysitting or whatever I could do to make ends meet. And it only lasted for so long. And, in and out of toxic relationships, because that's just something that I experienced all throughout childhood. And
Yeah.
I thought that's what was normal. I eventually was okay with it because, the person I was in the relationship with was using too. So it was just like, oh, okay, you accept me as I am. I'm okay with this, I'll just be in this toxic, abusive relationship. Um, and then I would fight to tooth and nail to get out of that relationship, and then I would wind up going back because it was what I knew. And I moved around from state to state, and I wound up in Colorado. And at this time, I was really tired of being a drug addict and, trying to raise a kid. And I really wanted to do something different. And I got on methadone, so medical assisted treatment, and I thought that was the answer until I started to abuse that as well.
Mm.
And then I got kicked out of the methadone clinic, so I went right back to abusing harder drugs, and I lost my house. I lost my house and my place to stay and my vehicle, and my daughter, and I
Mhm.
lost everything. And I literally became that person that I told myself, it's okay that I use drugs because I'm not that person. I'm not that person on the side of the street with a sign. I'm not that person breaking into homes to have a place to stay, abandoned houses or
Mhm.
um but I became that person, and that started my cycle of going in and out of jail. And like I said earlier, there was relief when I got arrested, and I would always tell myself, this time I'm going to do something different.
Right.
And I would get released and I would go right back to what I knew because I didn't know what else to do. And I was just okay with who I had become. I had lost everything. So, hey, if I'm going to be a criminal drug addict, I'm going to be the the best at it. That was the mindset I had. And I was just so broken and alone. I heard about the academy, and it just spoke to something deep within me, and it kind of fanned that one little spark I had left. That one little hope that I had left for something different. And I said, you know what, this is going to be my last shot. I had never tried treatment other than going on medically assisted treatment, but I had never done it right. I had never gone to like a rehab or anything.
Mhm.
And I said, what do I have to lose? Worst case scenario, I'm back out here. So I gave it a shot, and I made a commitment to myself that I was going to see it through to the end, no matter how challenging or difficult or how much my mind played tricks on me. And there were days that it did, but I saw it through to the end. And, you know, that's how I know that people are capable of doing unbelievable things, because I know that if I would have went back out there one more time, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would be dead. And I know that
Mm.
100% of my being, that I didn't have another run in me. So I decided to just give it my all, and here I am.
And you weren't doing it alone.
No. No, I was doing it with people that had come before me and had succeeded, and they reached back and they said, "You know what? I'm going to help pull you along through this until you're able to hold yourself up." And that's where the magic is having those moments of somebody just saying, "I get it. I'm just like you. The only difference is I've been doing this a little bit longer." and
Uh-huh.
being able to have that relate to somebody on that level. Sometimes there were days that was all I could cling to is if she did it, I can do it. If she did it, I can do it. That was
Yeah.
all that one little thread I had to cling to, but it was enough to get me through those hard days, and then I started to believe I was capable of things I never thought I was capable of.
And look at you now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. How much do you think of people's growing up contributes to finding themselves in the situation that you found yourselves in?
I would say it's situational. It depends on the
Okay.
person because I know people that are in the lifestyle that have had amazing upbringings.
Okay.
They have amazing supportive families, and if you really were to look at it as a case study,
Uh-huh.
there's no reason that you could find that they would choose that. And if you were to ask them, they
Mm,
would say it was just because that's what I chose to do. It had nothing
mm.
to do with my upbringing or my family. I just chose that path. And then there are other people that have some really deep seated things that have happened to them in childhood. And it was almost kind of bestowed upon them that that was the path they were going to take. And then I've met people that have gone through some horrific things in their childhood and have never struggled a day in their life with substance use. So there's really no one size fits all answer for that, which is pretty crazy because I went through most of my adult life using that as a crutch. Okay, well, this happened to me, so this is why I am, and people just need to accept it, you know? But realizing that, okay, yeah, those things have happened in childhood, different forms of abuse and just neglect and things like that. But okay, I'm an adult now, so I have a choice around how I react to that. It doesn't take away from the fact that those things have happened, but I get to choose how I react to those things. Do I cling to it for the rest of my life and allow it to tear me down and bring me down? Or do I use it to empower myself and other people that they can overcome hard things?
Anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
I mean, I can really relate to the part where, my upbringing was my mom was a little bit of a hippie, I grew up in the party era and that's just what it was all about. So once I became a teenager, I would go outside late at night and my mom would just always say, if you want to be on the streets, just go live on the streets, really. And
Mm,
so I kind of stuck to that. I was enabled because I was able to quit school at a early, in my teenage years, and
okay.
my mom was just like, "Hey, get a job and pay me rent." So that's
Mm,
what I did, and then eventually I lost my job, so that's why I started traveling with the carnival.
okay.
But yeah, so I think it just depends. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily your upbringing. It is your own choice. Um, but there is a lot of other factors to why people do become homeless.
As far as drug use, what caused you to make that choice for yourself?
Well, I mean, I could say that it's just because that's what I grew up with. My family used,
Hmm.
my mom, my aunts, and my brother. Um, so yeah, it definitely is influence, you
Okay.
know. So, but as far as hard drugs, uh, that was mostly just my mom. It was a pretty toxic relationship with my mother. So yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
I would
Is-
say, for me, it was around as a kid and it was kind of just normal.
Hmm.
mm,
And growing up, like you know that the grown-ups are doing something, but you don't quite know what it is, but you have this feeling that something's wrong and it's bad, right?
okay.
And also a sense of curiosity or surrounding it, like what do they do? What's
Yeah,
going on in there,
definitely.
And then it just kind of being normal, with uh like being a kid, like exposed to drugs at a young age by my mom's boyfriend, or whether it was a cousin or other kids in the neighborhood. And like I said, just kind of being able to realize like, okay, I can disconnect from all of this discomfort and things I don't like in my life right now if I just do this. And also the acceptance factor was a big deal for me, because all of a sudden I had like this clique and this group of friends.
Yeah.
If we were doing drugs together, it just kind of became normal.
That's so fascinating. I've never been offered drugs once in my life.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts about, now that you are on the other side, what are your thoughts about drug use?
Where we go? I would say my thoughts on drug use. I know that for me, there is no such thing as, you know, uh, social drug use or social drinking. I know that
Okay.
that would just send me right back to where I was. I'm one bad
Okay.
choice away, just like a lot of people in recovery are. But honestly, I don't really even think about it anymore.
Uh-huh.
I think more or less I'm able to talk about my drug use and how severe it was and how impactful it was, but without there being this big weight behind it,
Okay.
because it's almost like talking about a separate person, because I feel so far removed from it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not to say that other people can't have a drink at a wedding or at a friend's celebration
Yeah.
or something and be perfectly fine. But I know for me, I I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm grateful that I went through all the things I went through. Um and I wouldn't change it because it brought me to where I am today. But if I could rewind and make different choices, I definitely would. I would definitely not
Mm.
experiment with drugs and become a full-blown user, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I totally agree with
Mm-hmm.
all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't vape, I don't smoke cigarettes today because I feel like even that is a path to going back to using. And I think the beautiful thing about
Okay.
the other side organization, just in a whole, the academy and the village, we don't focus on drug addiction at all. We focus on just behaviors. So we don't label ourselves as a recovering addict or I've had this many years of sobriety. We just continually work on the behaviors, and it's just kind of out of mind, out of sight.
Yeah.
What behaviors are you referring to?
Just anything, any behaviors that's what we focus on is whole person change. And that's uh the beginning of it is just the behaviors, are being accountable, being honest,
Okay.
clear lines of communication with each other, being responsible, being early to everything,
Mm.
all of those things. Yeah.
I
I would
I
really struggle with that one.
I know the behaviors that I never even realized that I had that caused my life to become just a nexus of upheaval and chaos definitely were lack of boundaries, not really having a voice and being able to walk away from situations, but kind of just allowing them to continue around me. So now in my life, I'm able to have boundaries, even if
Mm.
other people don't like it. It's okay. You
Yeah.
know, I have to have boundaries and say, hey, don't do that around me, or you know what, please don't talk to me that way, whatever it looks like.
Uh-huh.
Those are just some examples. But when I first got to the academy, I was really quiet and withdrawn, and I had a hard time even making eye contact with people because I didn't trust people and I
Yeah.
didn't love myself. But you know, I really also had to learn to be okay with making mistakes
Mm.
instead of just beating myself up if I make a simple mistake and thinking it means that my whole life is going to fall apart because I forgot to set my alarm or whatever, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of behaviors that people come in with. We're liars, we're manipulators, we steal, we have so many behaviors that just become normal and a form of survival when you're on the streets. And we have to unlearn those things so we can relearn good things, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Do you think there's a component of where you're spending so much time focusing on the person that you actually want to be versus that you almost like don't have time to think about the habits you're trying to break and such? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I would say it was a little bit of that, but more so focusing on being in the moment. So that way I'm not letting these behaviors or these things slip by because I'm so focused on who I want to become.
Okay.
Think for me, I just one day woke up and looked in the mirror and realized I'm like, hey, I kind of like this person, instead of having those days where I would wake up and look in the mirror and I would just be flooded with all of these memories and shame of things that I had done and people that I had hurt. Um, I was able to just look myself in the eye and say, you know what, that's okay because that's not who you are today.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, oh, I want to become this amazing person that helps people and do all these things, I always knew that I wanted something different and I wanted to help people, but I wasn't able to do that until I could just be okay in my own body and in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
What else, Jeff?
I mean, I think a big, a key element that we teach people is not to future trip.
Mm.
We don't live in our past. So at the academy, you're not even allowed to talk about your past except for two really intimate moments. It's called a sophomore retreat and a junior retreat. So once you're there for a while, you'll do a sophomore retreat, and it's basically going into your story, but kind of just skipping a rock across the water. And then once you go to your junior retreat, it's everything from
Hmm.
your childhood up until this moment. So we don't talk about our past with our peers, except for in those two times. The village is a little different. We have small groups once a week, and we're able to talk about our past with our peers, but just not, we don't glorify, you know. And as far as future tripping, a lot of people come through and they're really in a hurry to just get to the next part. You're here for a couple months and you think you got it all figured out. That's never the case. Even after your graduation, you have to take it slow. Don't rush into a relationship. Get yourself grounded in a foundation. And then eventually, maybe we'll visit it 6 months to a year. And then you can start like looking for a relationship and all those things. The shiny stuff will always be there. Just take it in slowly.
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom in that, in embracing the process and taking it slow rather than just racing to the end.
Uh-huh.
So, what are your roles specifically? You're graduates, you've participated in the program, and now what do you do?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm a coach, which means I help people coming in off the streets just get a foundation under them, get established, and kind of find their place in the community. And I'm also the team lead of the coaches at the prep school, and
Okay.
I manage the other side prep school.
Yep. And I'm also in a similar role. I'm a coach, but really what we are is we're just friends to people. That's our role is to build
Yeah.
relationships with people, and not
Mm,
just level relationships, but long lasting relationships so that they learn how to do it with themselves and the people that they live with within the village and even their family,
yeah.
so there's that. And then I'm also the team lead over at the village.
How did you come to be in your roles?
Um, I would say just showing up every day and doing my best. I don't. Maybe they just thought, "Hey, let's give her a shot."
Yeah. Pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of coming from the academy, and being put in these different roles it was challenging at first,
Mhm.
just even being a coach and having any type of leadership, because there was always a lot of self-doubt in myself. Like,
Yeah.
this is something that I never dreamed of doing, so it's really fulfilling. There's nothing else I'd rather do.
So good. I know we talked about some misconceptions. Jackie, you brought up that there's a misconception that people who live on the streets don't want to change.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions that we have typically about those experiencing homelessness and drug use and all that comes with that?
I would say common misconceptions are that everybody that is homeless is a drug addict. That's
Mm.
not necessarily the case. We help men and women that have never struggled with addiction or substance abuse in their life, and maybe they just had a mental breakdown due to like a catastrophic loss of family or losing somebody close to them or losing a job. There's so many different reasons why people become homeless. There's not just one reason. Um, Another misconception is that, you know, uh, people with mental illness and that are homeless are beyond help.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way they are. Just let them be. Here we'll just give them $20 here and there if we see somebody flying a sign, but they're never going to change.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big misconception. And I face that personally being on the street. Uh, People, we call it the bigotry of low expectations, that people that are homeless or suffer from mental illness, that they're incapable of change. You know, that's just who they are. They're beyond help. Let's just do what we can to make their lives a little bit more comfortable, but we are not going to expect them to change. That's a common misconception. And then also that people that are homeless because they don't want to work, because they don't want to do anything different. Uh, I knew a lot of homeless people that worked all day long and stayed in a homeless shelter at night, but they could never get above the poverty level enough, or they had an eviction on their record so they couldn't get a place, or they would try to get off the streets by going to a hotel or a motel and it was infested with drugs, so then they were right back in the mix of it. So there are so many misconceptions, that we're just out
Yeah.
there because that's what we want to do and we don't want help. But it's not true. It might be true of some people. It was true of me for a long period of time, where I didn't want help. I just wanted you to put money in my hand so I could go to the dealer. I didn't want to change until I finally realized I'm trying to fool myself that I'm okay with this, and I'm not okay with this, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
I know that some misconceptions that I have, I'll be honest, and maybe you guys can help me with these, is that those on the streets are dangerous.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, what I've learned, even from the last 2 years of being a coach at the Village, a lot of people that come in don't have a criminal history.
Interesting.
There's people that have never been to jail, never been to prison. I wouldn't count like a traffic violation or something as something like that, but we're not everybody is dangerous. It is dangerous being on the streets, definitely,
Okay.
but not everybody is dangerous.
Like they're not out to get you
Right.
when you're just walking past them on the
Right,
street.
yeah. Yep,
Okay.
they're just trying to live.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But I hear people talking about those living on the streets as if they're a threat. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true. So thank you for clearing that. Yeah, Jackie, what else?
Can I just comment on that? I
Yeah,
think
please.
that there's that fear, and that's because people are misunderstood, and we stop to see them as seeing them as individuals, and kind of just labeling them as like, oh, that homeless guy or that homeless woman, but everybody out there is a person that has a history and a life attached to it, and
Yes.
they just want to be seen. I think that's one of the most important things is just seeing somebody as a human being, regardless of if there's somebody that's out there yelling at a light post, or having a bad day and might be intoxicated or have some undiagnosed mental illness and they seem and appear scary.
Yeah.
But they're just people like you and me. Some of them are really just lost and broken, and it appears scary, but they're just people. Yeah.
You've taught me so much about embracing. All of us have brokenness. All of us have messy. All of us have those parts of us that we keep hidden And yet it's this balance of acknowledging and loving that version of ourselves while also becoming, I don't know, for lack of a better word, maybe like the higher or the person that we want to be, but it's not ignoring the one to become the other. It's this beautiful melding of the two. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Okay. I would say that's definitely true because I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to embrace the person I am today um eh, if I didn't embrace who I was.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
I had to get to a point where I ultimately was just like, yeah, I have made some horrible choices in my life. I have a lot of regrets, but they aren't heavy on me anymore because I've been able to turn it into something useful to help other people. Um, and I'm able to see that in other people as well, that melding of the two, like you say. I get to see people come in that are just completely broken and maybe the majority of society would have written that person off, right? But we're able to come in and sit down with them and say, "Hey, I think you're capable of this. Actually, I know you're capable of this. Let's get you to the point where you believe you're capable. How can we do
Yes.
that?" And we sit down with them and we help them see their own worth, and
Yeah.
hold up until they can hold their own head up.
Yeah. Well said.
What are your thoughts on the term of regrets?
Hmm.
As far as regrets,
Yeah.
hmm. Well, we all have our own story to tell, and a lot of people do have regrets. But that's the beautiful thing of what we do is we learn. It's like we relearn who we are.
Okay.
Um, a lot of regrets is that I see people having, myself included, is, I regret that I wasn't a better father. I regret that I didn't make better choices in life. But every choice that I've made in life has got me to this point. Um, yeah, one of our beliefs is forgiveness, and that goes along with forgiving each other and forgiving ourselves of the mistakes that we've made.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say I had to reframe what a regret is or what it
Okay.
means to regret something because to me it's just really a heavy word,
Mhm.
like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I regret not loving myself. I regret giving up on people I care about. I regret all of these missed opportunities, right? I have to reframe it into a way where I can say, you know what? Maybe that happened that way for a reason, because it made me who I am today. I try to reframe it as like, more of a lesson learned than a regret. But um I'm not gonna act like I'm holier than thou and I don't have regrets. I think
Yeah.
I just think it's how you handle them. But there are times where it just comes out of nowhere and hits you really heavy and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh." Like that one thing. How can we have an expression we use at the other side, both at the academy and the village, about balancing the scales. How can I balance the scales? Even if it's just a little bit, instead of it being really heavy with regrets and shame and remorse and
Mhm.
guilt. How can I balance it? I can balance it by helping the next person. And that's what fills that hole for
Okay.
me, is helping the next person and seeing even their smallest victories, you know, even their smallest victories. If it's something as simple as, hey, I woke up on time today and I've really been struggling with that. And I'm like, yeah, I told you could do this. This is great. Let's celebrate it. Um, or, seeing people graduate out of the prep school and choosing their cottage that they're going to live in. I got to be a
Cool.
part of that last night. It's so cool. And this is an individual that almost gave up on themselves, left, and then came back and now is one of the strongest leaders that we have in the community, and just getting to experience that and having that feeling of, you know what, this person is going to be all right. we had a little part to play in that. It it makes you feel good. There's no feeling like it in the world.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned it's like or you have to relearn who you are. What
Hmm.
do you mean by that?
We a lot of the times, well, 100% of the time I came into the Other Side Academy, and I thought this like perception of myself was totally wrong. I came
Mm.
in angry, and like the whole world was against me, and um, I had to I had to relearn that people do care about me, and I care about other people, and that we do have a purpose in life. And that's what a lot of us are missing, is like
Mm.
we feel like we don't have a purpose, like, and we're just lost.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to relearn about myself. Um, and everybody's different, but that is pretty much that is the key right there, is just finding our purpose. And that's what we need to learn.
When you say our purpose, does that vary from person to person, or are you talking about like
I
a
think that's all.
generalized purpose?
I think that's all of us. I think that's I speak in general because I was that person, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Jackie, on that?
Um, I mean, I definitely agree with having to redefine who you are. That might be the most intimidating part of the change process, is having this ideation of who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
This self-image in your mind of who you are, and really just having to relearn that a lot of it is not accurate. But the most amazing part and the most fulfilling part is getting to decide who you become.
Yes.
Yeah, and as simple as, what is my favorite color? You know? Um
Yeah.
no. Oh, wow. I never even knew that I liked Indian food or olives, just like small little things about myself that I had just never learned, and learning new things about yourself every day. Even down to the behaviors that we talked about, when you think that you have tackled this monumental life altering behavior and then a different one pops up, whether it's like
Yeah.
self-doubt or just really having to recognize emotions and deal with your emotions, but like getting to redefine how you show up,
Yeah.
and you get to build this mosaic of like who you are out of all these pieces of your past and your present, and then that you know determines who you are in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've only just begin to rediscover life, or actually discover life for the first time, within the last 2 years of being out of the academy.
Yeah.
Oh.
I never knew that I liked going and I knew I liked rocks, but I didn't know I
Okay.
liked it so much as to like create a hobby around it,
That's awesome.
or there's just many different things that
Yeah.
Jackie and I have discovered together.
Yeah.
So,
Why didn't you discover those things earlier?
well, probably the distraction of, just not being in the right state of mind. Um, just feeling like my life was just nothing. Depression, all the things,
Okay. Yeah.
I had hobbies, but I never, maybe it's out of laziness, now that I think about it, just being lazy.
Okay.
I would say for me, I would have all of these grand ideas and hobbies and things I wanted to pursue, but it always came secondary to my
Mm,
addiction. You
okay.
know, oh, I want to
Mm,
go to the beach and look for seashells, but I need to make sure that I get my drugs first. I want to
okay.
go take my daughter to the zoo, but I have to make sure I'm not sick and I have my drugs first. So
Interesting.
everything that I liked to do or wanted to pursue, it became secondary. Nothing
Okay.
was as important as, you know, uh being a full-time drug addict. That was my life. Even if it was behind closed doors and people thought I had it together,
Yeah.
which now that I hear myself saying that, maybe maybe I thought that people didn't know, but I'm pretty sure people knew. But long story short, you know, having that distraction of, being a full-time drug addict and trying to keep up appearances, but also falling apart, you know, on the side, like thinking
Yeah.
I have it together, but I'm really falling apart. And then once you become homeless, that is just a 24/7 hourly survival. Like
Yeah.
I had to literally break my life down in hours. Like, okay, right now I'm going to go try to find something to eat. Okay, mission accomplished. Now I'm going to go try to scope out a place that I can sleep for the night. It is like an hour to hour survival, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. I've got just 2 more questions, and then we'll talk about any other outreaches with the foundation. But what have you learned about people in general from this work?
I've learned that people are generally good as a whole, even people that seem callous or rude or mean or broken beyond repair. There's human beings are inherently good, and that nobody is beyond help. Even if they're beyond the help that we can provide, there is still hope
Yeah.
for those people. And I've also learned that people can change.
Yeah, I agree. What I've learned is that even people that come from the roughest backgrounds, whether it's being in gangs as a child, or anything that has happened or that they grew up to be, they're able to change it and redefine their life. And that there is good in everybody, like Jackie was saying. It, we work with people from all ages.
Yeah.
I think what the youngest person we have right now is in their 20s all the way up into their 50s, and some people could just come in angry and depressed, but by the time that they graduate, they're happy, and they know what they want in life, and they have determination.
Amen. And what have you learned about love in this work?
Hmm.
I've learned that that we might not be friends or like every single person that we come in contact with, but everybody deserves love.
Hmm.
What No matter what form it is.
Hmm. I have learned that sometimes, as cliche as it sounds, that's all that somebody needs is a little bit of love and compassion, and people just want to be heard
Hmm.
and understood. And that, like Jeff said, even if it's, I've seen people that have come from completely different walks of life. They, on a typical day, they wouldn't even give a second glance to each other. They might even be enemies out there on the street, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I've seen the capacity of people to let that go and become the closest friends that are in our community, if that makes sense. I've seen firsthand, or I've experienced firsthand what it's like to build close friendships with people that typically we wouldn't have anything in common other than the common thread that we're trying to change our lives.
Yeah.
Like completely different things. Don't have, this person's a dog person, I'm a cat person. This person likes this kind of music, I like that kind of music. You're from the West Coast, I'm from the East Coast. Whatever that looks like, we're completely different. But we have that common thread, and that unites our community in love. That's one of the basis, uh, most basic things that we revolve around is just love and compassion.
Okay. So many good one-liners. You guys are awesome. Um, let's wrap it up with I've heard that there's like an other side moving company or things like that. Are there other outreaches that the other side provides?
Yeah, so we call them social enterprises. So the Other Side Academy
Okay.
is, we're both nonprofit and we're self-sustaining. The Other Side Academy, they're self-sustaining through the Other Side Moving Company, which is number one in the state, and the Other Side Thrift, which is number one for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't even know.
Okay.
We're just number one. We
Yeah.
so the Other Side Village, the way that we are self-sufficient is through the Other Side Donuts. And I believe we were number one last year.
Of course you were, because you're number one and everything.
Yeah. And it's really cool when, you go into the donut shop and here are these amazing, happy, joyful people that are serving donuts and telling our story. And these are folks that were living either in an encampment, in a tent on the side of the road, in a car, at a shelter. They were incarcerated, whatever that looks like, less than a year ago sometimes. Some of these folks might just be a couple weeks into it, but they're learning how to show up for their community and have a good work ethic. And like Jeff said, the social enterprises keep it free of charge for the next man or woman that needs to come through the doors and do something different.
And it also teaches them a wide range of skills.
Yeah. That's so great. And it's all located in Salt Lake other than the one academy in Denver, correct?
Yeah. In Denver, we have the Other Side Movers as well.
Okay.
And we also have the Other Side Furniture Boutique, which deals in high-end,
Ooh.
fancy furniture, which is super cool. I got to be a part of that as well.
How fun. I love that. And if people want to get connected, obviously we can go to the donut shop, we can go shop, we can use the moving services, but we can also contribute donations through the nonprofit on the website, correct? I think that's how I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of our information is on our websites. Anybody that wants to volunteer or make a donation or even just learn more about what we do, we are always open to telling people and encouraging people to come to our location and check it out and see for yourself, because it's one thing to hear about it, it's another thing to see it in person.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, Jackie and Jeff, thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories. This was incredibly inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.